Hey guys, welcome back. We are going to go through the entire SAT practice test number 8 math section only, modules 1 and 2. So let's go. Here is a reminder of what the formula sheet looks like. This is also accessible in Blue Book the entire time during your test. So it does have helpful information on here, particularly the special right triangles are very helpful. Sometimes they will give you the formula for this stuff in the problem itself. And these are also very helpful down here. So hopefully that will help you guys on your test. And let's go ahead and start with question number 1. A bus is traveling at a constant speed along a straight portion of the road. The equation d equals 30t gives the distance d in feet from a road marker, that the bus will be t seconds after passing the marker. How many feet from the marker will the bus be 2 seconds after passing the marker? So all we're going to do is replace t with 2. So we're going to get 30 times 2, which is 60. The answer is C. For a particular machine that produces beads, 29 out of every 100 beads it produces have a defect. A bead produced by the machine will be selected at random. What is the probability of selecting a bead that has a defect? So if we have 29 out of 100, then that is going to be our percentage there. What is the y-intercept of the graph shown? Our y-intercept occurs along this axis, and so what we're asking is where does the graph intersect that? That point right there is going to be 0, 8. So the answer is D. Which expression is equivalent to the one shown? Here we have 2x squareds and another x squared. So these are going to be off because we're going to have 3x squareds total. We don't even have to look at our 7x since those are the same, but let's figure out if it's going to be negative 10 or negative 8. We have negative 9 plus 1, which is going to be negative 8, so the answer is D. Number 5. An analyst collected data on the price of a carton of grape tomatoes at 30 locations selected at random in Utah. The mean price of a carton of grape tomatoes in Utah was estimated to be $4.23, with an associated margin of error of 8 cents. Which of the following is a plausible statement about the mean price of a carton of grape tomatoes for all locations that sell this product in Utah? A margin of error of 8 cents means that it's going to be 423 plus or minus 8 cents. So in other words, 8 cents less or 8 cents more. So it's going to be between 415 and 431. What value of x is the solution to the given equation? So from here, all we're going to do is subtract 2.6 from both sides. So the answer is 0.2. Out of 300 seeds that were planted, 80% sprouted. How many of these seeds sprouted? So I want to show you a trick in Desmos for percentages, but I'm also going to show you a different way to do it as well because it is simple to do this by hand. But I also know that some of you watching this may not be great at percentages, so I'm going to show you both ways. Whenever you have 80 over 100, this is how you're going to write it. 80% is 80 over 100. Now, when we have something divided by 100, all we have to do is move this decimal point twice over to the left, and that will take care of our 100. So the answer is going to be 3 times 80, which is 240. 240 of the seeds sprouted. Now I'm going to take you over to Desmos and show you how easy this is. So in Desmos, they actually have a percentage button. So you can just literally type in 300 times 80%, and then it's going to, so you can literally type in 80%. It's going to type in the words of 300 and it's going to give you 240 as an answer. So if you are if you know that you're not great at percentages, this makes it so much easier for you. For the linear function f, b is a constant and f of 7 is 28. What is the value of b? What this is saying is that the function f evaluated at x equals 7 equals 28. So we're going to set 28 equal to 4 times 7 plus b. And we're going to get 28 equals 28 plus b. Subtract 28 from both sides. So we're going to get b equals 0. So the answer is A. Right triangles LMN and PQR are similar where L and M correspond to P and Q respectively. Angle M has a measure of 53 degrees. And what is a measure of angle Q? Well, since in this order, M and Q are in the same position, that actually means that Q is also going to be 53, so the answer is B. What is the equation of the line that passes through the point 0, 5 and is parallel to the graph of y equals 7x plus 4 in the xy plane? So here, the only thing that we have to extract from this equation is going to be our slope, and that's going to be our 7 here. Now we have to use our point in the y equals mx plus b format, replace our m with 7, and replace our x with 0 and y with 5, and then continue to solve it. So we're going to have 5 equals 7 times 0 plus b. So now we're going to get 5 equals b. When we go ahead and write our equation, we have our slope is 7, our y-intercept is b, so the answer is b, 7x plus 5. Which of the following equations is the most appropriate linear model for the data shown in the scatter plot? So we can see that we have a negative slope here, and that's simply because it is going down from left to right. So we can automatically rule out options C and D because both of these have positive slopes. The second thing is that our y-intercept is going to be somewhere up here, which means that it's going to be positive 10.1, which is going to be option B. A model predicts that the population of Bergen was 15,000 in 2005. The model also predicts that each year for the next 5 years, the population P increased by 4% of the previous year's population. Which of the following, or which equation best represents this model where x is the number of years after 2005 for x is less than or equal to 5? Well, this ties into the setup for an exponential equation. We have to understand what each position is. So the first number is going to be our starting number, and this is going to be 15,000. So option A and B are out. It's either going to be this one or this one. Now, if we have a number in here that is less than 1, then it's going to be a decay function. And it says that the population P increased by 4%. So our answer is D. The solution to the given system of equations is AB, and what is the value of B? Well, in this case, we can go ahead and plug this into Desmos, and we can just use x for A and y for B. Or since it's asking us what is the value of B, if we were to just go through and subtract these equations using elimination, what we would find is that we would get a direct result. So this is going to be 8b minus 4b, which is 4b, and 198 minus 98 is 100. So we divide both sides by 4, and b is 25. The expression 90y to the fifth minus 54y to the fourth is equivalent to ry to the fourth times the quantity 15y minus 9, where r is a constant. So what is the value of r? Basically, what this is asking us to do is to look at what was factored out from both numbers, both of our original numbers. Now, let's take a look at between 90y to the fifth and 15y. What was factored out there? So 90 divided by 15 is going to be 6, and y to the fifth was there, and 4y's got taken out. So that means that r is going to be 6 here. The graph of y equals f of x is shown where the function f is defined by f of x equals ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d, and a, b, c, and d are constants. For how many values of x does f of x equal 0? All it's asking us for are the x-intercepts. In other words, where along our x-axis does the graph cross it? So we can see that it crosses at -2, at 4, and at 7. So this is going to be 3 values. The area A in square centimeters of a rectangular cutting board can be represented by the expression W times W plus 9, where W is the width in centimeters of the cutting board. Which expression represents the length in centimeters of the cutting board? So we know that the area of a rectangle is going to be length times width. It tells us that W is the width, which means that the length is going to have to be equal to W plus 9. So the answer is D. Number 17, the given equation relates the distinct positive numbers p, k, and j, which equation correctly expresses 4j plus 9 in terms of p and k. So in my previous videos, you guys may have seen any time that I say, or that it says, when an equation expresses something in terms of something else, what it's telling you is to solve for this. So in this case, we are going to move around this denominator as though it is one singular unit, and then we are going to solve for it. So let's go ahead and cross multiply. We're going to get 4j plus 9, the whole quantity, times p equals k. And then we are going to divide both sides by p. So this is going to be answer A. Circle A has a radius of 3n and circle B has a radius of 129n, where n is a positive constant. The area of circle B is how many times the area of circle A? So the ratio of their circumferences is going to be simply the second radius over the first one. And that's going to be 43. Now again, this is their circumferences. When it comes to area, it's going to be that number squared. And if there were such a thing as a volume, like let's say it was a sphere or something, then it would even be cubed. So 43 squared is 1849, so our answer is D. There is another longer way to solve this, but this is the fastest way, so I would recommend memorizing this. The measure of angle R is 2 pi thirds radians, and the measure of angle T is 5 pi twelfths radians greater than the measure of angle R. What is the measure of angle T in degrees? So it says that angle T is 5 pi twelfths radians greater than 2 pi thirds. So let's go ahead and get a common denominator here, where it's going to be 5 pi twelfths plus 8 pi twelfths. That's going to be 13 pi twelfths. Now, I want to point something out here. This is greater than 1 pi. 1 pi is going to be 180 degrees. Now, it's not much over 1 pi. So my estimation is that it's going to be option C, but let's just double check. So if we are going from radians to degrees, this conversion is also on the formula sheet, okay? And it is, from radians to degrees, we're going to have 180 over pi. So our pi's are going to cancel out, and when we go ahead and multiply this out in Desmos, this is what you get. You do get 195 degrees. The given equation relates the variables x and y, and for what value of x does the value of y reach its minimum? So here we are going to be looking at the parabola on Desmos. I'll go ahead, pull that out, plug it in, and let's go take a look. Well, in this case, since it's asking us for the value of x, I actually think that just plugging it into the vertex formula is going to be much easier here. So if we just take our b value, which is right here, and put that over to a, we're going to get, this is going to be 2 times 1 here, since a is 1. Remember that a comes from the coefficient of x squared, so we're going to have 14 over 2, which is 7. Now I will show you on Desmos just in case you didn't remember the vertex formula there. And if it asks for our y value, we would have to go back and plug that in. That was the original reason I thought that maybe Desmos would be faster, but in this case, it's not. So here's our equation all plugged in. We can see the parabola here, and we are looking at this minimum value, and you can see that we also got x equals 7. And if the y value would definitely be faster if we had Desmos. So here's our equation, going ahead and typing that into Desmos. And you can see here that the minimum value does occur at 7, negative 27. Now, with it asking for the x value, it was faster the original way that I showed you. But if it were asking for the y value, then definitely Desmos would be faster. A small business owner budgets $2,200 to purchase candles. The owner must purchase a minimum of 200 candles to maintain the discounted pricing. If the owner pays $4.90 per candle to purchase small candles and $11.60 per candle to purchase large candles, what is the maximum number of large candles the owner can purchase to stay within the budget and maintain the discounted pricing? This is going to be a system of inequalities, and we can figure out the maximum number of large candles here. So we are going to have 490 for our small candles, 1160 for our large candles. And we know that she has to be less than or equal to $2,200 because that's the budget. Now, it does say that she has to purchase a minimum of 200 candles. So that has to be greater than or equal to the sum of the small candles and the large candles has to be greater than or equal to 200. Now, let's take this over to Desmos and find out what the maximum values are. So now that we have our inequalities typed into Desmos, let's take a look at the solution and determine how we figure out what the maximum number is. Okay, so here what we're going to be looking for is the overlapping region. So you can see this light part on the top, you can see the blue part on the bottom, and you can see the overlapping part between the two of them. So what we're looking for is the largest number of large candles, okay, the maximum number of large candles. And in this case, I replaced our L with a Y value. So we want the biggest possible Y value, which is going to occur here. And this is going to be 182 of them. So, just for clarity, if they were asking for the largest number of the small candles, we would do the same thing, except look over here and see what the largest number of small candles would be. In other words, the X value. So, this case, she could buy 448 of the small candles, but then she would have no money left over for the large candles. Okay, anything within this darker region works, but we are going to go with the first answer that I mentioned, 182 here. Which point xy is a solution to the given system of inequalities in the xy plane? So since we have Desmos pulled up, we'll go ahead and type in these into the platform as well. So here they are plugged in, and what we are going to be looking for is the overlapping portions and seeing which one of our points fall within that region. So negative 14, 0 is not going to fall within our line. That's going to be to the left. 0, negative 14 is also going to be not in our range. That's only in the light purple. 0, 14 is only within the gray region, so it has to be 14, 0. The answer is D. You could also solve this algebraically by plugging in 14 for x here and here and making sure that you get a true solution. You would have to plug in 0 here and here as well, just making sure that your both inequalities work out there. So here is a frequency table, and it summarizes a data set of the weights rounded to the nearest pound of 71 tortoises. A weight create a weight of 39 pounds is added to the original data set, creating a new data set of the weights rounded to the nearest pound of 72 tortoises. Which statement best compares the mean and median of the new data set to the mean and median of the original data set? So I want to point some things out before we do too much math here. Okay, the weights given so far between 13 and 20 pounds. So we now have a weight of 39 being added. into our mean. And if you have a weight that is significantly larger than the other ones that you're given, naturally the mean is going to increase. So no matter what we're looking for down here, we are definitely going to say that the mean is going to increase. So C and D are both out. Now, the median is going to be affected just a little bit, but well, perhaps it depends because 72 tortoises is going to be an average between two numbers. It's going to be the 36th number on either side from right to left. So we can go ahead and just find out what that would be by looking at the frequency that occurs and adding those numbers up until we get to 36. So if we add in a 39-pound tortoise, this is going to be a 1 here. Let's go ahead and count these. So 12 plus 8 is 20. 20 plus 5 is 25. This would be the 32nd number in line. 32 plus 9 is going to be 41. And we are looking for the 36th number in line, which is going to be 9. That's the frequency. The frequency that occurs, I'm sorry, it's actually going to be 17 because then it occurs the 40, excuse me, the 36th number is going to occur within this frequency of 17 pounds here. So the median is actually going to remain the same. So this is going to be answer B here. Which of the following are solutions to the given equation where A is a constant and A is greater than 30? So if we take a look at this and we get this set equal to 0, so we combine our like terms, we'll be able to factor it and then figure out what our solutions are. So let's go ahead and subtract x minus 29 from both sides. Now, take a look at this very carefully. You can see that between the first term, this whole thing, because they're multiplied, so it's one term, and this term, that they both have this x minus 29 now. So if we go ahead and factor that out, this is what our equation will look like. So we're going to have 0 equals that. Now what we can do is set both of our factors equal to 0 and solve for x. So we're going to add 29 over, which means that one of our solutions is x equals 29. So A is out. And then our next answer is going to be x equals A plus 1. So our answer is C. In the xy plane, the graph of the equation y equals negative x squared plus 9x minus 100 intersects the line y equals c at exactly 1 point. What is the value of c? So in order to find out the maximum value, what we have to do is find out where our vertex is, which is going to be negative b over 2a. That's going to be negative 9 over 2 times negative 1, which is going to be 9 halves, and that's going to be 4.5 if you prefer decimals. I'm actually going to use a fraction here. So what we're going to do at this point is plug this into Desmos and get our answer. So y equals negative 9 halves squared plus 9 times 9 halves minus 100, and that's going to give us the answer negative 319 over 4, so our answer is C. The functions f and g are defined by the given equations where x is positive. In which of the following equations displays as a constant or coefficient the maximum value of the function it defines where x is positive? So let's figure out what this is talking about. When we have x is greater than or equal to 0, okay, we're looking for the result as a constant or a coefficient. A constant is going to be this number out here with no variables attached, and the coefficient is going to be the 18 or the 9. So let's try to plug in 0 into our equation to see what happens. So if we plug in f of 0 and we get 18 times 1.25 to the 0 plus 41, that's going to be f of 0 equals 18 plus 41 because this guy is 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So f of 0 is going to be 59. 59 is not a coefficient or a constant there. And let's do the same thing for g of 0. So if we have 9.73 to the 0, that's going to be 9 times 1, which is 9. Now, the reason I solved this equation the way that I did is because the second equation is because this is a decay function here. So remember that this is less than 1, so the graph is going to look something like this. This one is actually a growth function and it has no maximum, which is why this guy, it was just not going to work that way. Now, if f of x has to be greater than or equal to 0, that means that we are taking this decay function and we are segmenting it and saying it only exists over here onto the right side of it. So that means that g of 0 is going to have that intersection point at 9, and that is going to be the largest value. So the answer is B. So congratulations, we've made it to the last question on module 1. So the perimeter of an equilateral triangle is 852 centimeters. The three vertices of the triangle lie on a circle. The radius of the circle is w radical 3 centimeters. So what is the value of w? So let's go ahead and sketch out our triangle here. And then we're going to draw out our equilateral triangle. I'm going to do my best here to make it accurate. So let's draw a couple of very important parts of our circle. So we know that this is the center of our circle, okay? And then we'll go ahead and label, we'll just call this A, B, and C here. And we'll go ahead, we'll call this center O here. Okay, now let's discuss about equilateral triangles. We know that all three of these will be equal, all of our sides will be equal, and we also know that the perimeter is going to be 852. So the perimeter of an equilateral triangle, we're simply just going to divide that by, excuse me, 3, and the answer that we get is 284. So we know that each side of our triangle is 284. Now, if we were to connect a radius, so let's just use A and O, okay? That's going to be the vertex of our triangle, one of the vertices of our triangle, and the center O. That's going to make this a 30-degree triangle, a 30-degree triangle. And we can go ahead and draw this line straight down to the bottom, okay? And that's going to make a right triangle. Now, that would be a 90. That would make this a 60. And we know that it's actually going to come down from the center of our circle all the way down. It's going to actually cut this exactly in half. So this side over here is going to be 142. And that is going to be across from our 60-degree mark. Now, the way that I like to set this up for our ratio so that it's more easily seen is I like to go ahead and draw out what I like to call our model triangle. So across from our 30 is always going to be a 1. Across from our 60 is always, or 1x, excuse me, this is going to be x radical 3. And then across from our 90 is going to be our 2x because our proportions are in a ratio of 1 radical 3 and 2 for a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Now that we have that, we can go ahead and set up a proportion between our triangles. So we know that we have 142, and that's in the same position as our x radical 3. We also know that the radius of our circle is w radical 3, is what the problem tells us. So we can also set up that proportion Okay, and we are going to have this equal to this. So let's start with our 142. If that's going to equal x radical 3, then we can go ahead and divide both sides by radical 3, and that's going to be what our x is over here. So if we know that that's what x equals, then we can just go ahead and pop that into our formula here. And we can say that 142 over radical 3 times 2, that's going to be 184 over radical 3. Now that we know that our model triangle, the hypotenuse would be 184 radical 3, we can go ahead and set that equal to our w radical 3. And let's go ahead and see what w equals. We can go ahead and multiply over our radical 3. So we'll go ahead and get 184 equals w times radical 3 squared, which is going to be 184 equals w times 3. Divide both sides by 3, and that's going to give us a result. Wait, excuse me. So 142, I messed up right here. So 142 times 2 is going to be 284. So I'm just going to adjust that down here. So 284 divided by 3 is going to be our final answer. So congratulations, we have made it all the way through Module 1 together. Now stick around for Module 2.